Welcome back to InnovaDID. It is Anna.
And Fabian, which is weird. We're getting used to being co-con right now because we're not co-con, co-fronting. I blacked out. I guess I didn't remember stuff. My fiance had to catch me up, today, but
We're adjusting to co-fronting because it's weird because we're from two different subsystems and co-fronting feels weird. I don't know, I'm used to co-fronting with my subsystem, but like Fabian and Crowley, I've co-fronted with Crowley from the time reps as well. Weird.
yeah, okay, so who wants to start? Because
You know what, let's do it this way. Okay. So, we've recently been encountering more like medical interactions, and like we've been out of the system and in medical treatment for both physical and psychiatric for now as a system for 2 years. And doctors don't know how to treat dissociative disorders most of the time, in our experience. We just wanted to talk about, like, what is happening and, like, a little bit of our experience. So I will put a trigger warning on the part where we're talking about our experience is with shitty doctors. And how things could be fixed, but also, like, the entire issue, because it's not something that's gonna be an easy fix. Basically, there are some therapists and doctors who understand dissociative disorders and can treat them a bit, but what is actually taught to people when they're learning in, like, med school and, like, when you're going to get your psychiatry license, like, they teach things that are wrong about how to treat patients. Like, a lot of the times they're given the model of only talk to the host alter, and like call to that alter, do therapy with that alter, try to get the other alters to work through that alter's life, just get everyone to listen to them. And it's like, why are we still doing this?
Basically, okay, so for our system in particular, we're incredibly overt, and we have a lot of, like, we have a lot of main fronters most of the time. We have several people who are around, and every time someone is out, they're, like, important to the body and the system, and their struggles are entirely valid. Anytime anyone in a system is fronting, their needs should be taken care of, because all alters have had different experiences in the body, and a lot of us have had really awful experiences, and part of healing is to get every alter to have varied experiences so that they can experience positivity and everyone can heal, because alters have different pathways in the brain. And so if only one alter heals, the rest of the brain is still traumatized. The rest of the alters still are going through things. Even if you just have them in the back, that's still constantly going on in the background. And that can be exhausting. That can lead to chronic fatigue syndrome. That can lead to depression, that can lead to random outbursts of PTSD, even if you're not sure where they're coming from, because other alters are repressed when you're using the model of only going through the host. Now, it is true that there are some host-centric systems. However, in those cases, the goal should still be to communicate with the other alters and understand why they're there and what they need to help you with, and to be able to give up some control in circumstances that you may not be prepared for. But basically, we have been in a circumstance, so trigger warning now, discussion of hospitalization inpatient program. In 2020, we were hospitalized for an eating disorder. However, because of our other comorbid diagnoses of OCD, which at the time was not diagnosed, whenever we answer screening questions for mental health, they always are like incredibly concerned about us, and we have to be like, no, this is my base level. I'm actually doing really well right now. This is a lot better than normal. Because we have, like, intrusive thoughts about suicide due to harm OCD. And at the time, I think we thought it was because of depression. But we would always say it's not active. And this is something that needs to be understood by doctors and by people who are doing psychiatric screenings, is when someone says that suicidal behavior is not active, they're not going to do anything. When I even explain 100%, I say, yes, I have thoughts of suicide. It's intrusive thoughts, which means I think about it because I see a random thing and it's a trigger for a thought, but then I can remind myself that that's not something I need to do, and I can move on because I'm recovered right now. I haven't self-harmed or like done stuff like that. So we were in a really rough place, but we weren't suicidal. Someone had been having flashbacks while they called the hospital, and they had like said that they were having flashbacks and it was PTSD was really bad. But we ended up, when we had to go to the ER because of COVID and everything. You had to get a COVID screening, be all medically cleared before you were allowed to go to the inpatient hospital and get like all set there. They ended up putting us on a psychiatric hold and like taking all of our stuff, and we didn't have our phone or anything in the hospital when like I still wasn't able to communicate with like my fiance or like the people who were gonna be picking me up or anything like that about what was going on. And I didn't even have my own clothes. Our sensory was really bad because we have a really hard time with like the textures of hospital clothes and like the sheets. I really hate the texture of them. And we didn't have any of our own stuff. And we were sitting there having like panic and like meltdowns, and they just didn't do anything. They have no accommodations. Like, it's not just for DID. They have no accommodations for autistic people. They have no accommodations. They way overreact to OCD. And this is something that after this has happened, we've become incredibly, incredibly cautious about how we talk about our intrusive thoughts, because I can't say no, I don't have that, because if they check my psych records, they'll know I'm lying, and then that causes issues because of the BPD diagnosis, which sometimes when people see that we have a BPD diagnosis, they assume that's our primary diagnosis, and they think we're being deceptive and trying to get attention, and because that's all BPD is. It's not.
But basically, even after that experience, just yesterday, I called, because once again, we're having some eating disorder issues. It's different this time, but basically, I called my, like, insurance people, because we're on Medicaid, to ask, like, what options would be, because I think I need, like, an outpatient consultant, like, dietitian, who can put me on a feeding tube because of the circumstances at this moment, or who can help monitor my eating or something, because I'm really concerned about how we're eating right now, because it's getting worse. And basically, when I called them, they told me I needed to go to the ER and get medically screened, and then based on, like, if I needed medical attention or not, they would tell me what the options were. So I was like, okay. I went to the ER. I was there for 6 hours. They did a bunch of tests, which they told me all came back normal, but then when I checked my results, my hemoglobin was low, and then I checked the last blood panel results, because no one ever opened them when we went to the epilepsy monitoring unit. I checked those, and my hemoglobin and red blood cell count was also low, and no one has mentioned this to me. So I'm just, like, curious, because there was, like, a flag on it. Like, there was, like, a red, like, notification in, like, the, like, doctor's app. And so I clicked on it, and I was like, what the fuck? Why has no doctor told me this? Because that's supposed to be indicative of anemia. Okay. But so basically, we, like, were there for forever, and then this social worker comes in, and she's like, oh, so they're saying that what you need is outpatient and a feeding tube? And, like, that's what you're looking into? And I was like, yeah, like, that's what I've been saying. And then she was like, oh, well, when you first came in here, what Medicaid had told us is that you were suicidal and relapsing in an eating disorder and needed to go inpatient. And it's like, where did I say that? Like, literally every time inpatient is brought up, I say no. Inpatient worsens my condition. I need to be able to, like, stick to my routine and have my support people around me consistently. Like, I don't understand where they got that. And this is something that just, like, the lack of training is just astounding to me. It just will never cease to be astounding to me. When I mention to someone that I have an eating disorder, but I have to explain DID. I say, do you know what DID is? And they say, yes. I'm explaining it. I'm like, cool, they know what it is. I know I shouldn't just assume that means they do know what it is, but if I try to assume that they don't know what it is after they just told me they did, then I seem like an asshole, even though they don't know what it is, because they're referring to my alters as alter egos. Like, are you fucking kidding me? And, like, this last social worker I was talking to, when I was, like, explaining it, she said that likely we would have to meet a certain criteria in order to, get a tube, which I don't want a tube. I want to make this clear. Like, I really don't want one, but the severity of the situation and our circumstances right now, I feel like that is the only option that doesn't result in us losing a shit ton of weight dangerously fast. And so, like, I'm kind of, like, stuck between a rock and a hard place here. But basically, so I have a referral to a dietitian now, that they'll call me to get a referral on Monday. But, like, I wasted 6 fucking hours of my time because they didn't understand eating disorders or dissociative disorders. And it's like, the fact that I'm not even, like, surprised is the part that is so frustrating for me. Because it's like, this shit happens all the time. These, like, spaces, even, like, trauma survivor spaces, are not equipped for systems. People, like, I don't understand why there's, like, no spaces for dual diagnoses, especially, like, things that have common comorbidities. Like, we got eating disorder treatment without OCD treatment, which is like, how the fuck is that supposed to treat my eating disorder? Because half of my eating disorder is OCD. Like, we have managed to, like, temporarily we were forcing ourselves to eat, but, like, now that people have decided to relapse, we're constantly, basically my entire day is spent fighting to make food or try to drink, like, a meal supplement drink. Like, I'm doing everything I can. I'm taking a, like, supplement. I'm making sure that we're staying hydrated. I'm doing everything I can. But it just, that's not always enough. Part of the reason we're trying to be more open about eating disorder stuff is because one of the things we have learned from eating disorder treatment is that eating disorders thrive in the dark. And so if I am openly like, hey, people in my system are doing this, and we need to be actively not doing that. We need to be working against that. Like, Tegan and I have been fighting it, because, like, Fabian hasn't been out very much. I know he probably will be helping us with this now that he is out. If, like, we're probably gonna go do that after this video, actually. But, like, I just... it's really hard to recover when there's no spaces equipped to handle the like, multiple diagnoses that we have. Like, our situation is just so severe that, like, even our therapist now, who's like a new therapist, he's been helping us with OCD, and that's great, and we're able to help him understand DID a bit and like some things, but he's been like honest about the fact that it's something that is going to be a learning process for him, and it can be overwhelming, so we're going to have to go slowly, because it, for both him to make sure that he's understanding us clearly, and for us to not feel like overloaded, we need to try to focus on like one thing at a time. But basically, this just needs to be fixed.
So, the issue stems from what is taught. Like, people are taught in school to ask for the host. So, in times when we have, like, for example, Fever was out doing our intake, and they kept asking for Zane or our dead name. And we were at the point where it was like Zane was trying to keep everyone contained innerworld. So it was like, well, you can have Zane out, but you'll probably only have him out for like 5 minutes, because then we're going to start rapid switching, because it's going to be chaos. So no, I'm not going to go get Zane. You can talk to Fever, because Fever is here and Fever knows what the fuck's going on. Fever was like host at the time, so Fever knew what the fuck was going on. Like... But because it was Fever and not one of the names that not the name we go by, or the dead name, they didn't want to talk to him. And it's like you guys, anyone who's been watching the channel for a while will understand how prevalent Fever was in our system. The fact that a mental health professional wouldn't want to talk to Fever is hilarious to me, because he's like the mentally illest of all. That's not true. But like, he does present very clearly with BPD, and with the eating disorder he was struggling with. Or maybe, no, Wes was struggling with the eating disorder, actually. I think he was struggling with the BPD. And that fucking hospital was like, diagnosis, borderline personality disorder. Patient believes themselves to have dissociative identity disorder. And it's like, oh, I wonder if like the 3 doctors who diagnosed me might have something to do with the reason I believe myself to have a dissociative disorder. But like, you know, couldn't be bothered to pull up my old medical records. Basically, what needs to happen is there needs to be more awareness and education about how dissociative disorders actually function. Because what we need to be doing is we need to be allowing systems to heal completely and work together and work with each other and be able to love themselves. And you have to learn how to take care of yourself and parent yourself and love yourself the way that you should have always been given love. And that's a really fucking hard thing to do, and it would be a lot more helpful if more therapists could understand that that needs to be the goal of treatment, is to accept all parts of yourself and allow yourself to heal, and see, maybe some fusions need to happen, maybe some systems will fuse naturally, but maybe for some systems people are going to stay separate and find strength in the fact that they have other people there to support them constantly, because a lot of times having DID is a lonely experience, because it's isolating to feel like you're the only one who's going through life the way you're going through life, and it can be ostracizing because everyone in your life sees you as someone and you have no idea how they see you because it's some sort of amalgamation of everyone, and you're just like, all right. Well, I hope you have a good perception of me. I know some people have a bad perception of me, and it's just, it is what it is. I try my best to only put positive energy out into the universe now, and when I'm fronting, and a majority of people who take front are on board with a set of values that we have for ourselves, but if someone comes out and is counteractive to that, we have to take responsibility, and we have to accept that people aren't going to understand it. And I just hope that someday a bigger part of society can understand minority experiences. Because this goes for any sort of minority. Just the absolutely appalling misinformation that is out there. It just... abolish society, basically, is probably the end note. The saddest part is, like, everything ties back to capitalism and the same oppressive organizations and institutions that fuck everyone over. It's the same people every time. Like, and we know this, it's always the people with money that do whatever the fuck they want because they don't give a fuck about anyone else's human rights. And it leads to the way that the therapy system, for one, got set up was on the benefit of these people are annoying to neurotypicals, which don't technically exist, but whatever. They're annoying to neurotypicals. And so we need to figure out how to make them more like neurotypicals, despite the fact that that fucking hurts them. And you see this everywhere. That's not just in the therapy system. And this is why, like, I'm like sad to say I think this is a delusion, but I believe at this point in time, at this moment when I'm off my antipsychotics temporarily because there was a delay in the medication getting refilled, that some humans have just evolved beyond that, and I am one of them. And I don't want to change the world necessarily because I have my own shit going on, but I'm gonna help the people around me as much as I can. And it may not have anything to do with being highly evolved, but it might just be being a decent person is what someone in my head is telling me. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we just need to try to spread kindness and try to help survivor spaces be more inclusive in themselves, because the community is kind of a mess. And I think literally the only way to change it is for everyone to just be like, fuck that, let's change it. And so we're educating people as much as we can
every doctor we come in contact with, when we have the mental energy, we try to educate them about DID in their spare time. Same with nurses. Anytime we're in the ER, the whole time we were in the EMU, constantly educating people about DID, because the way I see it, if I can make even 1 or 2 more nurses understand how dissociative disorders actually work, the next time that nurse sees a multiple patient, that patient isn't going to be traumatized because someone has explained to them what to do. And it sucks that that burden falls on the shoulder of disabled people, because it shouldn't. But I have the resilience and the mental energy to be one of those voices advocating. So I'm going to continue to do that with this channel and just in my own life with interacting with people.
Be kind. At the end of the day is really all we're trying to say. If anyone is considering starting a YouTube channel to talk about their own system experiences, if you're in a safe environment to do so, and it will not be a risk of your safety for if any abusers you're living with were to have access or find, like, as long as you're safe to do so. We always just worry. I hear we have sometimes systems who are minors who come in our DMs talking about how they want to do what we do, and it's like, be careful, because what you say can be used to hurt you. But if you are able to look at the risks and be cautious, this is why we don't disclose our triggers or anything. It's why we sometimes will blur certain alters' names, because we have alters who don't want their names to be known. We have our system is very large. There's only a small percent of what we are going through that we can talk about openly. And the reason we feel able to talk about eating disorders and about our experiences with the medical system is because we have found coping skills and ways to deal with the medical system, and we have multiple alters who are fully recovered from eating disorders, who are fighting and who are working and who are able to know, we're able to know that the information we're giving and what we need to do for ourselves is coming from a place of having been in eating disorder treatment for years. And we know how bad our disorder can get. So we don't mind sharing now, because the last time we were sick, we hid. We wore baggy clothes. We stopped taking pictures of ourselves. We there was no evidence of how bad we were doing. And I think that's part of why, part of the reason why, because we were so dissociated from our own body that we weren't able to even realize what we were doing, because we were so dissociated. And I feel like a lot of these alters are dealing with something similar, because they're dealing with trauma, and their coping mechanism for trauma is eating disorder response. at least I'm a caretaker, and I've seen that happen to multiple alters in my system, and I would not be surprised if at least a few of the alters, because I know there's multiple alters around, if at least a few of them were dealing with that. Because our eating disorder is a multifactorial cause, so different alters have different types of eating disorders. But overall, anorexia is what we're diagnosed with, and we haven't had issues with bulimia since we were 14. 16. Okay, I'm pretty sure. There may have been like 1 or 2 relapses, but we're manic as fuck, so I'm sorry this video has kind of been all over the place. I hope that you got something out of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, feel free to check out our other content. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Also, we have our link tree in the description for all our other social medias. We are considerably more active on Instagram, and I've been using Twitter a bit lately. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video I make. I probably won't see you for a while.